Well, thank you guys for being here and taking the time to speak with our students today. I'd like to start off with the question, what is your relationship with AI and how do you guys use it on a day-to-day basis?
Yeah, okay, so in my previous job when I started the program called Decoded Futures, previous to that I used to lead or was part of the leadership team of an organization called Perscolas that did tech training for underserved New Yorkers, and I built classrooms all across New York City. And you know, I'm actually from Elmhurst, Queens, and it was like really amazing to build a classroom where I grew up. And a lot of that work, I was training organizations and nonprofit leaders in the context of just like understanding tech and digital training. And the realization very simply was like, you know, our community, especially the social sector, the communities where I come from, often get left behind when it comes to emerging technology. Like even to this day, there's still broadband access problems in neighborhoods in the Bronx and East New York. And I'm thinking about that in terms of access and equity. So when we were thinking about building a program in AI, it was really under the fundamental value that I do not want to create, like AI is here and you guys have seen it, especially in the last like 2 years now, how quickly and how scary the growth has been, like increasingly so, that it's literally transforming every aspect that we're thinking about and in ways that are both slow and fast, right? In ways that we still don't know about. And to me, I wanted to create an opportunity for the sector, at least in the social sector and nonprofits, the ones who are helping students, the ones who are helping get people jobs, the ones who are helping the underhoused and providing social services, with the ability to use this technology in a way that makes sense for them, knowing all of the context and sort of the negative connotations and all the things. Because my contention was always, AI is not just destruction and AI is not just opportunity. I think it's both things. And how we contextualize that and provide that in safe uses for our communities has been really important for me. So my relationship is a little bit in the middle from where you guys are, mostly because I see the opportunity, but then recognizes the trade-offs and sort of the harms as well. But I also think it's really important that we are preparing our communities for what that changes are like. So that is really sort of the core of how we think about building even now at Welcome to Chinatown, because we're focused on is supporting small businesses, especially businesses here in Manhattan, Chinatown, legacy storefront businesses, immigrant businesses. You know, I think everyone's getting especially older here. There's the digital divide in Chinatown. More than 90% of the transactions, as you guys know, are in cash. And it's thinking about what that looks like in the future as things are deeply changing. How are we supporting our communities and meeting them where they are? And then how I use AI is, you know, part of it is like, it was interesting. I didn't, and now I had to really upskill myself in thinking about that, but not just using it, but like, in order to be able to teach safety and privacy and all of that stuff in between, I had to really deeply mesh myself. So all the way from basic prompting to agentic work to building my own stuff, it's kind of been a little bit of, it's all over, but I'm happy to talk through some of that.
Yeah, plus 100 to a lot of what Bryan said. My relationship to AI, a little bit fraught. Like some days I am feeling really optimistic, or probably over the course of the day I'll start optimistic and then be a little bit scared, both for myself and what's ahead. You know, my professional life has been focused on education, and in particular education as a means to help people achieve their goals. And a lot of that really came from growing up as a child of immigrants and knowing the role of what that education can play, right, in getting you to where you want to go. That's, I think, a lot of where, when I think about AI and opportunity and making sure AI is a tool to create more opportunity rather than harm, is where I spend a lot of my time thinking. So what does that look like? Well, I think we'll talk more about AI hacks as for learning and for job search, but one of the most, interesting and transformative parts of this AI moment is that, in fact, hey, it's a natural language tool. Like how you communicate with ChatGPT is with the normal language that you use, right, to communicate with others. And that means it's a lot more accessible, to Bryan's point, to be able to become a coder and to build agents. The reason why, besides being very smart and capable, but like he is able to communicate directly and, hey, here's my goal, help me do this. And so that's when I think about AI and opportunity. How do we unlock the fact that this is an accessible technology and make sure it's doing the most we can to help others achieve their goals. So I'll talk a little bit more about that, but I think that's sort of that current relationship.
Great, yeah. And I think piggybacking off of what Andrew just said about AI creating opportunities, I'd love to go into the next question about how has it changed how you see like the job application landscape looking like, and what should job seekers be aware of AI, and how can they leverage it to help them?
Yeah, sure. Yeah, so I just mentioned earlier Pursuit, right? We are working with underserved New Yorkers and helping them get jobs in tech and increasingly jobs in AI. Yeah, I have to sigh first because it's been, I think you are reading some of the headlines, you are reading about layoffs from companies, which they are at least saying is because of AI. Whether or not they're really because of AI, I think that is, as we get beyond the coming transition, it's probably not just because of AI, but it's for other reasons. We are seeing too, beyond layoffs, right, that for entry level, I know, especially where you guys are, you're entering the workforce or thinking about what you want to do in your careers. Hey, is it removing some of what the traditional pathways into the workforce have been, and especially into a good job? Yeah, I think way too early to say. And so we have been trained over 300 people. We are working on getting them into jobs. I think the two things I'd call out that are relevant to you as you're thinking about it are when a job is posted, the hiring manager at this company or organization is getting flooded with resumes, literally flooded, because there are AI and other technologies that are sending out resumes, real and sometimes not real. And so before you even have clicked apply, maybe some of you have seen this on LinkedIn, it's wow, this job looks so interesting. There's a little words in italics that says, 100 have already applied. And you're okay, great. So there's this volume that recruiting teams, hiring teams, talent teams are dealing with. And I think the implication or the effect is that the typical spray and pray, as we say, you're just pressing apply, you're sending your one resume, does not really work. Leveraging and building your relationships and social network, what you have access through Apex for Youth, right, becomes more and more important. Your family, your friends, these important networks. Today, now you have the three of us to support you, but being able to use those relationships for advice, a referral for that job. So that's one thing, the importance of your social network as part of your career. The second thing I'd call out is, I mentioned earlier how AI, ChatGPT is accessible because it's natural language. I think that also means there's an opportunity to show what you can do rather than tell. What does that mean? I think that means, for the people that Pursuit serves, we help them build a portfolio of work, especially in a tech-focused role, which these days we can all be tech-focused. You can have a project portfolio of, hey, I built this app, this dashboard. It doesn't have to be very sophisticated, but it is a really dynamic, much more dynamic than a one-page PDF way of showing, hey, I understand a goal, a project, how to translate that to an organization's objectives. So I think those are the two call-outs I'd make.
Yeah. I'll add a couple things. There's a really interesting policy that one of the big LLM companies are using for how they approach jobs, which is Anthropic. They actually have an AI policy, or they have a policy of what they can and can't use an AI when it comes to jobs, which is really interesting for a massive large, and one of the more, you know, one of the largest large language model labs, and their context was if you're just using, and you probably know a little bit more than I do, but like if you're using it entirely to answer these questions, create a resume, you know, it'll be flagged and you won't be considered. The idea here is you're augmenting it to be able to help support you in your creative thinking. And I think this is actually really important in the context of not just the showing and telling, but then how you're telling the story of yourself. You know, ultimately, and we'll talk about this when it comes to best practices, the work that these tools should be doing if you decide to use them, which is important in your own context, is that it should be augmenting your problem solving skills, your creative thinking, your ability to tell the stories of yourself, your storytelling skills, and your way that you're projecting yourself out to the world. And I think that's important. If you're going to practice with these tools, remember, it's like you have a unique voice that you want to be able to provide. It's so clear. And I see this all the time of when someone is just, you know, blatantly just using AI to answer the questions in front of you, or you know, even helping you, like it can help you think through things, but it's so clear when it's telling you the answer, and that output is very, very clear. Even in the context of tech and you know, as you, whether you're vibe coding or building your own tools, it's so clear when you're just asking for the first output as opposed to building in terms of your vision, what you want to see in the world, both in language, in other sort of documents, and then in actual output in tech. So when you're thinking about even tech portfolio, if you're in that space or other portfolios, it's how are you augmenting the things that like really make you feel like this, you know, is success based on the things that you're learning. So I just wanted to add a little bit of nuance.
Yeah, I think that's a good call out, and it makes me also think about, and maybe we'll get into this too, but just to say, hey, you know, how do you use AI in your job search, right? I'll tell you what I do, and what also we guide the people coming through Pursuits program. I mean, I think high level, your ChatGPT or your Claude or your Gemini, the main LLM tools out there, as your thought partner. To Bryan's point, it's not writing your whole resume. Have you guys heard the term AI slop?
Yeah,
well,
you see it everywhere.
Increasingly, yes, there are obvious telltale signs. This sort of vanilla. Yeah, it sounds good. Way too many words usually, and then there's just certain kinds of words too that are the tools tend to create as outputs, and it doesn't have much sense authenticity, which I think is what, to Bryan's point, a hiring manager is looking for, both on the page and in real life. Yeah. But you can use it as your thought partner, right? Maybe you have your first, even before you get to the resume, but you have found a job listing that you think is interesting, you know, help you brainstorm with you, like, is this job a good fit? Is this even aligned to my goals? What are my goals? And take you from start to finish. And then with your initial resume, hey, help me identify ways to refine my resume, specify a resume, and align it to what is in the job description, right? But you're not actually creating the whole thing with AI. You're using it to refine, but build on your starting document.
You know, one question we didn't ask at the top that actually might be helpful in terms of giving you guys advice based on your career paths is like, for the students in high school, I know you don't have majors, but some of you guys do because you might be in CTE schools. Is anyone here like, okay, maybe we'll start with college actually, because that's much easier. For the college students in the room, tell me whose majors are in like STEM oriented stuff, like whether computer science or math or high. Okay, great. What about like liberal arts or maybe English? Or you can just call out what you guys are studying, so it might be helpful for us to get a sense of like how to support you in your career paths.
Psychology.
Psychology. Okay. Anyone else that's different than you?
Mathematics.
Mathematics. Wow. Okay. Wow. Love that.
Math and English.
Math and English.
CS and cognitive science.
CS and cognitive science. Mm-hmm. And then anyone on the high school side, you know, are you thinking about STEM schools? Are you thinking about general things? Like, where are you guys at? So it just helps us a little bit with how do we like have unique, answers for what you guys are approaching and the challenges you're dealing with too. Anyone else? I mean, feel free to just like say out loud. Yeah, go ahead.
Like AI and computer science in general.
What is it?
Like AI and computer science in general.
Okay, got it.
Computer science and software engineering?
Computer science, is that right? And you're in high school?
Yeah.
Okay. Anyone else? And no worries, we're not forcing you to speak. It's just helpful for us to get a sense of who's in the room to get a sense of how do we help you with, jobs, what you're thinking about next, the transformation of things. I think the honest truth that we can say up front is we do not know what the changes are that are going to be into the labor market, but we do know one thing, which is we don't know how it's going to transform, but it will transform. And the question here is like, how do we help you at least have a framework, a set of like best practices thinking through to be able to like support that as those transformations happen. Like I remember looking at this LinkedIn presentation, I think Andrew was there too, for some sort of report, and it was in 2000, which is 26 years ago, like the job social media marketer or front-end engineer or a bunch of other jobs that exist today that are part of core competencies for private companies and nonprofits and government agencies didn't exist, 2 decades ago because of how quickly things are transforming. We're seeing a lot of job title changes a lot. Doesn't necessarily mean that's always changing in terms of the core competencies. And we're seeing a lot of people transform their resumes to sort of orient toward that transformation. That being the case, you guys are both in like an interesting space in this history because this transformation is happening. Nobody knows exactly what it's going to be, but we have a sense of what success has been looking like for the people that we've been working with. So we're gonna try to get you as much lessons and best practices in that space. And if you have very specific questions and concerns, I want this to be a dialogue, so it's worth it for you guys when you're listening to us. And that I'm sorry to derail the conversation on this.
No, this is perfect.
Yeah.
I'm sure this is what the students want to hear anyways, and I'd love for you guys to go into the best practices if you want to talk about
Yeah, well, I mean, do you want to start with some questions actually, and just to see what they might be interested in? Like a handful of questions.
I mean, maybe one thing just, and then we'd love
Yeah.
your questions, and we can go back and forth. As we have been trying to make sense of the labor market, because our goal is to get people into a job, ideally at 85, 100,000 or above, which has been our history. We are seeing at least the segmenting of jobs into AI augmented or AI enabled. So this is somebody mentioned psychology, somebody mentioned marketing. So those are traditionally not necessarily any tech related role, but because of the accessibility and the applicability of AI, you're seeing those things come together, right? And it's not a if, it's happening, but AI enabled and augmented. And then yes, we've got our CS and software developers, right, where you're more advanced, like into actual product and building tools of all kinds with AI. So more traditional engineering with that AI layer on top. So I don't know if that's helpful, but as I think we have been thinking about, hey, what are good jobs, and to line up to goals that just an understanding, it's kind of has widely applicable, it's just maybe at different levels.
Yeah, agreed. Well, how about, I feel like there's probably some questions in the room about concerns, futures, things of that nature as you're thinking about, maybe just throw a couple of questions for us so we can start trying to answer things that are going to be helpful for you guys. I can talk through best practices of prompting, things that we're seeing generally. I'll just say, even on the small business front with immigrant entrepreneurs, the part that people don't talk about as the opportunity with AI in this place is this opportunity where I'm seeing where small businesses, margins are low. They're often forced to use a lot of different services in order to make things work, whether it's POS systems or delivery companies or et cetera. For the first time ever, I am seeing them with enough upskilling, the ability to build something for them and their communities in ways that they never had the chance to before. What I'm saying is, if they didn't want to use Ticketmaster, we all hate Ticketmaster, a small theater company can use their own system that makes sense for them and host it. It takes time to build that, but now they can build something that's both bilingual for their communities or their front of staff. And we're seeing a lot of that opportunity, though understanding privacy, safety, all of the other concerns that they have. We can train for sort of that context, but there's an empowering thing that people aren't seeing because we're not talking about their stories, right? So, I want to make sure we kind of give you as balanced of an approach as you're thinking about it, being mindful of the things that you're concerned about, but also want to show you other opportunities that we're seeing in the space that I think are really interesting. So not to make it shy, I want this to feel like more of a conversation so it's helpful for you guys, but maybe spitball a few questions that you have and then we can either that or we can go straight back to the questions. There's some great questions here, but I also want to make sure it's aligned to what you guys are thinking about.
Hi, my name is Fatima, and I'm currently a biotech major.
Mm-hmm. And where are you going to school?
City College.
Cool.
One of my questions would be, I'm not really well versed into AI. I only know just regularly asking random questions.
Totally.
So for someone who doesn't know much about AI and is wanting to learn, do you know any resources or especially you guys that come from underrepresented communities?
Totally.
How did you guys navigate to learning or coming or being where you are right now?
Great, that's a great question. Any others that we can fold into not we're gonna answer. I just want to make sure, but there's also other questions that if you wanted to, or I can just straight address. Anyone know? No, that's a hand. Okay, great question. What year are you now in biotech?
I just finished my first year.
Okay, well, congratulations. So this is interesting because I do have a good some ideas on life science right now and AI. It's going to be an industry where there's a lot of feelings that it's going to be upended by AI, specifically depending on which part of biotech you're thinking about. For example, drug discovery is one of the biggest aspects of what people are thinking about related to AI. And if you don't know, there have been huge leaps and bounds in terms of genomics, and I can't even pretend that I know all of those nuances, but that they're starting, all the big pharmaceutical companies are starting to build their own things and work in collaboration with the big labs to build models that are specifically focused on LLMs. So there's a consideration here of okay, this is going to be a lot of changes in this industry that are likely going to happen when it comes to staffing and what that looks like. But I will say, I would start first with thinking about where you're thinking about in biotech that you want to get involved in, because that also can mean working at a startup and doing ops and working in these spaces. Don't be so unless you have a very specific career pathway in this space, I would actually think about all the different opportunities and where your skill sets can align, because there's a lot of really small, really great companies that are starting to build for different things, whether it's healthcare for this specific segment, mental health for this specific segment. There are a lot of companies doing really awesome things in those spaces. For AI, I would start with, this is actually how we've always taught. I don't want you to immediately think, I need to figure out everything in biotech and AI. Doing that will just make you feel really overwhelmed when it comes to applying it for whether you're not in STEM or you are in another major. I would approach it more I would approach it a little bit smaller, which is the way that we've always taught utilization of AI is it's not about the expectation that you guys are going to suddenly become technologists unless you already are becoming, you're in a CS major. It's about how to figure out which problems can be solved with technology and which ones can't be, right? When you're working in a project, when you're working with a company, you are often trying to solve problems through your day. Some of those problems aren't actually technology problems. The only reason this thing is not happening is because this person is slow. I don't know, no offense to that person, but you have to understand the dynamics of the things that you're doing. In this case, as you're starting to really start the process of learning how to utilize AI, I would think about the workflows that you have right now. What does your day-to-day look like? What are the things that cause you the most headache in terms of the time spent on a particular topic, right? And then I would think about how you can utilize AI more effectively in those spaces. So, as an example, I run an internship program separately. So you should check this out next year, called the New York City Internship Program, where we support 110 New York City interns to get jobs in AI companies and life science companies. New York City Startup Internship Program. And it's the same thing I teach them, which is start with a problem that you have in your office, and it might be like we have to. I'm trying to think of like a really basic problem. Andrew, you have a really basic problem that you generally deal with?
Manage my calendar.
Manage your calendar, and that's a really specific one, which is like if you provide enough inputs, it's like helping you through. Is this enough time to be able to get certain projects done? Like, are you properly creating enough hours in your project management system to be able to approach this specific project in time, so you're not procrastinating to the end like all college students do, right? And also even analyzing how you approached the work last time to help you provide a little bit more of that context. It could be a simple workflow like that helps you start thinking about how to utilize it. And I think if you start with the personal, then you could start thinking about the professional, because there's so many nuances of biotech that can be utilized, right? But right now, you're not in the workforce. You're not in the space to try to do that. So the way you want to think about it is, how do you approach it in ways that solves problems for you now? And if you do that, that's a good start to get you to then be more interested in the applications in the actual field.
Yeah.
I hope that's helpful. Oh, and then as far as resources, I hate, like, there's so many out there. And they all do
free.
A lot of free ones that are out there, like even from the labs themselves. Like Anthropic has so many education tools. There's a lot of, like, I hate to say, there's some YouTube stuff. There's some actually good YouTube stuff in terms of just figuring out and we can walk you through at least some basic prompting and what that looks like. That could be helpful as well. But yeah.
Yeah. I think +1 to what Bryan is saying, which is to start with the foundational. It has to have meaning and value to you, like really, it's stuff that you care about for you to start like having that comfort and interest that will then make it translate into the professional setting. A few like things to build on for the people that we train and that we place. Sort of have a philosophy around ask AI. It's then ask AI, and our program is in person, but we have an AI tutor that we've built. Ask AI first, ask your teammate who's sitting with you at the table, and then we also have our like industry mentors and facilitators. But I think we talked about how you are communicating with your chat tool in English or whatever language, right? But how you communicate naturally. That means there's this opportunity to really engage it as your thought partner. So help me, this X goal, help me build a plan for an hour of AI learning every day. Here's a little bit about myself. I don't know anything about, I'm talking about myself, not you. I don't know anything about coding, but I want to do an hour a day. I don't have any budget. Help me get started, and it will continue to refine. And we'll turn this into something a bit more practical, but I think it is getting used to asking AI if you are comfortable, but it can be there as a tool for you. Although there are a lot of free courses, in the short term, while the market and like employers' jobs are still changing, I do think it's valuable to get a free, course completion certificate. What is an example? So we mentioned Anthropic, one of the leading tool developers, the people behind Claude. Their website has I think 5 to 10 courses. When you complete it, you get a digital credential that you can put on LinkedIn. The courses are, 1 to 4 hours. They're pretty basic, but I think it's a good signal, even in high school, to have, as people are figuring out, hey, what does this mean? Is this actually something valuable? At a minimum, you're getting a little bit of learning, and then you could say, hey, it's branded by the leading AI company. And this, I would say, applies even if you're not entering a tech role, right? If you're in marketing, hey, the hiring managers at least heard about Anthropic or OpenAI, and therefore the course has a little bit of meaning.
Yeah.
Other questions?
Yeah, please. Likewise. Well, can you just speak up a little? I'm sorry.
Sorry. My question was that it was mentioned about authenticity before.
Mm-hmm.
And my question is like, how do you set apart an AI swap application compared to somebody who's actually being themselves?
Yeah, great question. And a lot of this is, there's definitely a lot of tells when it comes to just AI slop generally. I think Andrew's kind of mentioned already, but the way that it contracts certain words to the way that it even positions some of its just general baseline, like there's writing that feels very robotic in nature, very AI oriented, and I think the way that you're going to provide authenticity, one, this is really important to develop your writing skills, especially with the English major in the room. Like having a voice, being able to understand exactly how you want to be able to articulate yourself and your story is incredibly important here. Because if you don't have a point of view and you're not working on your writing skills, it's hard to then provide a point of view after you ask AI to do something, right? Part of the way you can really use it effectively is having it understand the context of you and the way you write and the voice that you have and the tone that you have. Because what you're doing uniquely is instilling that, whether it's the way that you want to project friendliness or how your tone really wants to project into this application, to the way that you're telling your story of yourself, it's unique to you. And the way that you get better at that is recognizing, building on the skill set of actually writing more effectively, and then being able to have an opinion as well as like copy editing of that. Like I always think it's actually important not to start off with AI, like just an AI draft. It's starting off with your draft. It's putting out together exactly what you want to be able to say and what you want to project. And then start there. Like you can use it to augment and help copy edit portions that you think can be stronger, but it has to be stronger on your terms. I think that's really important here. I feel like there's more you want to talk about a resume that you're better than I am.
No. I think to Bryan's point, this applies to all of us, but I think especially if you're in high school or still, in college, you should not be copy and paste straight from your first your chats with ChatGPT or Claude, and period. I think foundationally having that philosophy where you are going to really review the output after you prompted the first time, every time.
Yeah.
And you have your own sense of what, like, wait, this does not sound like me at all. This sounds kind of weird. I don't understand what that says, right? And you yourself can then bring your own sense to edit. So don't copy and paste gets you into a lot of trouble. Not you, but in general, and we have seen it across the board, whether you're a student or even professionals, researchers who are quoting fake studies that the chatbot accidentally invented. I think the other thing here, we're getting into hacks here. If you have, ChatGPT, Claude, or Gemini, usually both in your settings, just with your profile, or if you create a project or a little play, you can upload your writing sample, a piece of writing you really like, and say, hey, this is my tone. It will have something always to refer to in making sure it's much more natural and aligned to your voice and your authenticity. So those are two things I would say. And to Bryan's point on just building your own communication skills, we know that AI tools are going to be out there, right? And so part of it is, because I'm on this natural language kick, but how we leverage the tool is by communicating our goal and the context of the prompt, right? And so the better you are at critical thinking and then communicating it in writing or voice, that's another hack, something that I found to be very effective, the better you'll be and the better the output will be. So I think those are a couple of things to think about.
So there's a principle in AI use and design. It's called keeping the human in the loop. This is probably something you've probably heard before, but this idea that the output of something that's generated or you're help supported and generated by AI should never necessarily be the thing that you send, so not the copy and paste. It's keeping you in the context of all the things that are created, not just in text, but in all the things, right? Like, you know, as an example, like we work with these small businesses who have to work, you know, I mean, you probably hear already, you probably live your lives in spreadsheets too, like everyone else sometimes, or when you're kind of doing things, you're like, maybe you're hosting an event for the first time, a personal event, and then you put a whole spreadsheet together, and it's just a mess, right? It's like, maybe it doesn't speak to itself or anything like that. And one of the interesting things we're seeing with small businesses is, I think why we found some success in working with them is because they are an expert in the thing that they do. So they know what success looks like. They just don't know how to build the thing, right? They didn't take shortcuts to understand how to properly build, make jewelry or create ice cream or do the thing that they do. What they have to spend a lot of time with is like fixing their books and figuring out like how to automate certain things because they're spending so much time. They didn't take shortcuts to be able to understand the core of what they're doing. And now they're using technology to augment it so they can focus on those things like creating new flavors or, you know, finding more customers and all this stuff in between. I want to take the same principle in that to you guys, which is there are no shortcuts to be able to get expertise in the thing that you're passionate about or you're growing passion in, right? And if you take those shortcuts by utilizing AI to even walk you, you know, through what your tone should be, I don't think it helps you create an opinion about what good is. Because that's the thing that you're thinking about. It's like, think about all the things that you consume that you love, right? It's not slop. It's based on hard work. It's earned because someone worked really hard to create a thing that you end up really liking. And I think if you want to create the same outputs, whatever career you're in, you're going to have to understand there's no shortcuts to adding that context, that expertise, that nuance that is you, right? Like, yes, it is a really exciting time to build. There's this version, like especially for the engineers in the room, vibe coding. It's so much faster than any other time to build something really quickly. Like I've been really thinking about deeply how to fix garbage in New York City. And I was like, yeah, I'm gonna build an app. But I actually have I did my master's in municipal garbage. I did some stuff in garbage, so I have some context here, which I'm trying to build for recognizing where people are and all that stuff. And the same thing we do with small businesses. And I just think it's really, really important as you're thinking about it. Like, I think for the software engineers room, we should have a real conversation about this because you are seeing the headlines of like, I had a CS degree in Stanford and now I work at Chipotle. Like, it's a little aggressive, and I don't necessarily think that's right. But I think, I still think there's a huge merit to being in computer science and to being in this space entirely. And the key here, though, is yes, it is crazy because where are we now? Claude 4.7, 4.8, Codex, whatever. It's coding at ways that we've never seen before. So it's really important that you're adding context and actually having a point of view and having an opinion about things, and also thinking about how you can create levels of efficiency there. I cannot promise you what that's going to look like in the actual job market, but I think it's really important that, again, we're not trying to take shortcuts in the things to build, to create context, to create expertise. So when you're thinking about, how it feels authentic, ultimately the answer is going to be what is authentic to you, and how are you building that into whether it's a resume or, I don't know, a Substack you decide to write, or whatever it is that you're doing. And what's your major again, so I can have a little more context again? What is it? Math? Oh, you're the mathematics major. Yes. Yeah, so I think in this case, it's really being able to hone in on how you want to tell your story. I would say it's really important for people in STEM to better understand how to communicate. Like if you're in academia and other places, one of the things that they always struggle with, or at least I remember for a lot of STEM graduate, is their inability to always weave the story so well so you can get all the grants and do all the things. I just think it's a really important skill set no matter what. And I really hope it doesn't get upended because you can just take advantage of AI. So, sorry, it was like a long-winded thing, but I hope that was helpful. Yes, please.
Thank you for taking the time to speak with us today. I'm Sharina. I study math and English at Columbia, and I feel like a lot of people say that AI lacks creativity, which, in my opinion, I don't fully agree with. And, for example, earlier today I read a piece about how AI
man, creativity is such a loaded word, right? So is the idea of thinking, you know? I just think things are being trained so much more effectively than ever. There's a lot of nuance of the reason why things are trained so well. Like, in fact, there's now language that it's not about like the trillions and trillions of parameters it's trained on. It's based on like smaller models are also being very efficient. Yeah, I think we're moving in this direction of exponential growth no matter what. So like whether we're going to use the loaded word thinking or the loaded word of creativity, these tools are going to be more and more powerful in its ability to complete tasks in ways that I think humans, especially things like mathematics and STEM, it's moving faster than anyone has ever really had context to. I think, I don't know, this is such an interesting conversation. I feel like I could write a full essay on this one day, of like just like creativity and things. But I do think, I think it's also opening our ability to like try, oh my God, that's it? Oh no, I have 5 more minutes. That's why I said that. Andrew, I'm gonna let you take a little bit more here because I'm like, it's such a good question that's actually making me reel a little bit about what creativity is and also what intelligence. Anyway, go ahead.
Yeah,
Thanks.
I don't know that
Great
I have
question.
an articulate answer. I mean, what I was thinking about is, what is a large language model, right? How has it been trained, which is on, the vast amounts of language-based data and out in public. And, is the ability of the models to think and to leverage that data. Sure, there is inevitably some like baseline outputs that we would say represent creativity and the permutations on the permutations that lead to, what is creativity, like new, novel, art, invention, something. I would like to think the human side in terms of the grit and like the work of creation is still, there is a difference. Maybe it's just AI enables us to get to a certain level, and then, but how we think about creativity as humans is still a little bit differentiated. I don't know.
This is
I
so
don't
interesting.
know. Yeah, it's a
I
very
mean,
good question.
I do think that there's going to be so many novel things that are going to create just solely with AI getting a chance to do stuff. I mean, this is what we have. The Nobel Prize was recently given to, oh my God, what was the Google model from DeepMind that did stuff in biotech? It's like it unlocked a bunch of things in life science that never existed before, and it did it so quickly, it's nuts. Okay, we have 5 minutes left, so I just wanted to give a quick thing on, or 2 minutes, or maybe 1 minute left, 3 minutes left. I wanted to give a quick primer on prompting really quickly, especially for the non-tech people in the room. If you are using AI like Google, you are not using it effectively, because then you could just Google. Which is like, tell me the thing, like, just asking a couple questions and getting an output. In order to use it effectively, as Andrew said, there's ways to already provide context about you, the way you want to be articulated, your story. But in general prompting, if you're not vibe coding and you're just trying to get an output, I would say, there's a lot of different ways that people do this, and this is the way that I teach, and Andrew teaches also a little bit separately, which is we have a role and goal. So you really want to create the more specificity that you give AI, the better, because hallucinations are a thing. You heard of hallucinations where it just makes up? Remember, these are programs and technology developed by private companies, and they want you to use the tool more. So there's a lot of this like criticism of sycophancy, which is it just tells you how awesome you are all the time. You're like, oh my God, that was the greatest idea I've ever heard in my life. And you're like, was it? But it was like cool. And it's great because it allows people to want to use it more, but it's not necessarily creating more effective prompts here, right? The way that you want to think about it, the specificity is really important. So the reason why we do a role and goal is we're adding context about something, like what is this current prompt supposed to do? In this case, if you're like in social media, you want it to be a social media expert, and then your goal is to help you generate more, I don't know, Instagram captions, whatever. And then we do steps So when you think of like what are the steps that it needs to take in order to get something, in traditional like computer science courses, they always give you the exercise, how do you make toast? For anyone in the room, or how do you make a sandwich, right? This is an exercise where you ask like, how do you make a sandwich? People are just like bread and peanut butter and then bread and then we eat. And I'm like, that's great, but where is the bread? Where do you walk to? Would you open a cabinet? Like, remembering that there's steps to a task at all times. And the third piece would be output. What exactly do you want the AI to output? What does authentic mean in the context of output, right? How long is it going to be? What is if it's text-based? And then the last piece that's actually really important in that framework, so it's role, goal, steps, output, and then the last piece is eval, or evaluation. You have to create an evaluation layer because it adds, not just with hallucinations, AI has a lot of problems when it comes to dates, days of the week, word count, things like that nature. You're creating a small layer of checking on the facts, asking it for source material, things of that nature, double checking. So then it creates a second loop as you're thinking about the prompt. So you're adding specificity, you're coming back and you're adding another level of specificity. So as you're thinking about building more prompts and practicing in AI, I would start using that sort of basic framework or a version of that framework. And if you have anything to add to that framework, and I'll just stop there. And maybe 20 more seconds. So sorry.
Oh yeah, no, that's very practical. I think, easy way to dip in. You should try to challenge yourself. No one sentence prompts, right? Take a minute to think about and provide a little bit more detail.
Yeah.
3 to 4 sentences, and even more if you can. I think the last 2 things I'll say, just a few words, which are AI is not magic. These are large language models. They have been trained. There is a tool. You have agency. You have control. Bryan just gave you some good hacks in terms of the prompt and how you are driving the output from the AI tools. And I would say that applies not only in your use of AI, but as you're thinking about your goals for your education and your career. So please connect with us on LinkedIn, and we're also here to answer other questions after we conclude.
Yeah.
Thank you.